maybe you've been elected to a group and you feel as though you don't deserve to be a part of that group, or perhaps you're in a position that you feel you don't deserve. And in a nutshell, that is imposter syndrome. And a lot of the time, that is just your brain just tricking you. And you just have to get past the discomfort of that. And that's just how it is. But there are certain times, and there was a time in my life where it actually was true. And I want to talk about that today. So some of you may have seen my video about getting into UC Santa Barbara with a 3.1 GPA. And, well, maybe not. There's only, there's not a whole lot of views on that, but if you've seen that video and you've heard my story, it was essentially, I was a very unlikely candidate to be accepted to that school. Very, very unlikely, like under 1% chances based on the history of admissions to that school on the internet that I could find. And when I got there, I didn't feel as though I didn't belong. I felt that I had earned it truly. And that's not necessarily what I want to focus on, but I really want to focus on the trajectory that I felt that I was on compared to everybody else. So when I got there, I was ready to compete. I had, been forging myself into this capable student for the last 2 years prior to that. And by the time I got there, I felt like I was ready for the challenges. But really what I started to realize is that, hey, even though I may be ready for the challenges, I don't really have a good reason for being here. And, they say it's something you're supposed to figure out as you go on, but I think that's not true. I think that if you're going to college, a degree is kind of like a tool, and you should know the job you're intending to use it for before you set off to buy those tools. And so when I was there, I was accepted as a pre-financial mathematics and statistics major, and I took one stats class my first quarter there, and I got a B. And I didn't take it super seriously. I didn't do any of the homework, and I didn't do as well as I should have or could have, but I still got a B. But at the end of the day, I kind of had to take a step back and think, well, did I really enjoy any of that? And to be honest with you, the answer was no. I loved calculus in high school. That was like my bread and butter, because I was on Adderall. But when I was at UCSB taking stats, which was my major was pretty much directly related to, I just didn't feel like it was something I would want to do for a job or for any long-term period of time. And so that was the first class that I took, one of the first classes that I took, and that became apparent to me immediately. Excuse me. And so as the year bore on, I just kind of started to notice that, the life that I wanted was not a life that was going to be taking place in Santa Barbara. And a lot of the people that I knew were getting internships, and they were looking into getting jobs and getting connections and networking in Santa Barbara, which makes perfect sense. If you're going to UC Santa Barbara, you'd want to establish yourself in that area. And so, that all made sense to me, but I just didn't feel like that was where home was. But I was going to give it the full year no matter what to make my mind up about it. So I continued to do my classes, and I would talk to people about how they felt about being there, if they were enjoying themselves, if they had a career in mind when they graduated. And the answer I got from pretty much everyone was exactly the same, except for a few specific people who were in, engineering majors and things like that. But everyone just kind of said hey, I'm going to UCSB. If I graduate from here, I'm going to make $150K a year, if I get hired anywhere. Which at the time made sense. I don't think it makes sense now. But I just kind of felt like it made sense maybe for them, I meant at the time, but for me that just didn't make sense even then, as far as if your job is going to be a majority of your life, you're working 40 hours a week at a job, you're not going to be doing anything for more than 40 hours a week when you're in your, in a working career. You're just not going to be doing anything more than that. And so if you don't like your job, if you don't enjoy the day-to-day activities that make up your job and your work, then you're gonna hate your life. That's just plain and simple. That's just how it's going to be. And even though you may be making $150,000 a year, it's not worth hating your life for 40 years. I don't think, at least. And so that was something that I realized very early on. And once I started to kind of catch on to that, the imposter syndrome really set in, where it was dude, I have no business being here. All these other people seemed to have different priorities and goals than me. And it just got to a point where I felt like I was wearing a white hat and everyone else was wearing black hats, sort of thing. Like I just didn't fit in at all. Everyone that I talked to, I wanted to just, do completely different things than me, not necessarily just in the fact that they wanted to like, pursue, their education there, even though there was no goal in sight. But also, like having fun and all that kind of thing. Like they were all looking to go out and drink all the time and party. And I mean, it's UCSB, like that's what you kind of can expect. But like I said in my other video, like I had felt like I had gotten my fill of that in high school, and I didn't really want to do that when I went to UCSB. And so pretty much I started to kind of feel like, yeah, like I don't belong here at all. And I don't think some of these other people belong here too. Like based on what they're telling me, like doesn't sound like they have any clear-cut goal in mind, like I said, but teach his own and they'll probably figure it out. And so towards the end of my freshman year, like I just decided like, hey, this is not for me. It's just not worth it. It's not worth it, the commitment. It's not worth the fact that like I'm putting my life on hold at home, and I enjoy my life quite a bit here in Northern California. Don't want to give the exact location. I don't know. But I love my life up here. I love the people that I've created a community around up here, and like this is the life that I wanted to continue to build off of. And so uprooting all of that to live a life in Santa Barbara that I don't even enjoy geographically or that I didn't enjoy socially, it just didn't make any sense. And so after my freshman year, I called it quits. I came back home, went to my local community college, and flunked out of my community college. Pretty much. I had like a less than 2.0 GPA. I couldn't pass any of my math classes, and so then it kind of hit me like, wow, yeah, I was right for sure. If I'm not going to be passing my math classes here at a community college, then I really had no business in a math major at UC Santa Barbara. So that kind of affirmed my beliefs a little bit, but I guess, yeah, and then, I ended up, when COVID happened, I ended up dropping out and I started a business, and I've been doing that for 3 years now, and things have taken a very large turn in my life in the better, or for the better, and so I'm very thankful for the way that things progressed as far as the last 4 years of my life. I got extremely lucky with the timing of COVID, and I was able to capitalize, like I said, on a small business and get into a niche industry where I've been able to establish myself and be able to sustain my living and then some, and really get my early 20s set up in a successful way. So I'm very happy about that. But as far as my time at UCSB, when I think back on it, the more time passes, the more I really confirm that, hey, I had no business there. And, although I didn't feel like an imposter at first, I started to really feel like, hey, this is not where I should be. And I feel like that feeling is something that you should really take a lot of time to think about if you're having it, because you never know. You could be in the right place, and perhaps your brain is just sabotaging you into thinking that you're not worthy, and that's totally different. But if you feel as though you're not in the right situation and you've thought about it for a long time, and logistically it makes sense for you not to be in a situation, then there's absolutely no shame in taking a risk and jumping to a new situation, because there's far more risk in staying in somewhere that makes you unhappy as opposed to giving yourself the opportunity to find something better out there for you. And so luckily I was able to make that happen in my case, but I think that there's no reason why somebody else wouldn't be able to replicate what I did. And I think there's a lot of value in that. And so that's kind of my story. I had imposter syndrome, and I was able to take that and flip it around and change my life. And now I live where I want to live. I have the community of people that I want to have around me. I have a job that I love and that I get to do from my home. I get to work for myself, and that never would have been the case had I just stuck it out when I was at UC Santa Barbara. So hopefully this can help somebody make up their mind about their situation. If you learn something, that means the world to me. So let me know in the comments if you have a similar situation. I'd love to get back to some of you guys about that. So Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.